We might all be familiar with the term passive aggressive behavior. I actually did a video on how to deal with passive aggressive behavior and comments, but what is it exactly? A lot of people have been asking, trying to get some examples. So let's talk about what exactly is passive aggressive behavior. Welcome to the channel. My name is Gabriel Arroyo. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist located in Southern California. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Happy to have you here. Be sure to subscribe to stay up to date with our weekly videos on mental health related topics and helpful coping skills for you to apply in your own everyday lives. So today we're going to be talking about passive aggressive behavior. What is it? We know the terminology, but what is the actual definition? So passive aggressive behavior is identified as a pattern of negatively expressed emotions in a passive way. So that's where the passive comes from. It's expressing some discord and some dislike, some upset feelings, but in a very passive way. So this could be through like joking, passive comments, sarcasm, poking back at you, firing back at you, but then hiding back or trying to dismiss it and act like it wasn't really serious or that big of a deal. It could also be by passive behavior in the sense of not following up with things, kind of procrastinating things, ignoring things. This could be examples of passive aggressive behavior. Now, of course, there's a lot more examples that we could go through, but here's going to be the main ones. So typically when we're having somebody that's being passive aggressive, we're going to see these comments, see this behavior, but why are they doing it? Well, one is ultimately they don't know how to communicate their emotions in a healthy way. So to be fair, a lot of people don't really have that skill set 100% of the time, me included. Sometimes I get frustrated, I get upset. I might make a comment to see what the reaction is going to be, and then I have to put myself in check and be like, oh, well, I'm a grown man and I do therapy and know about psychology. Let me just express my feelings, right? So inevitably we have these tendencies or these events, these responses. But once again, passive aggressive behavior is identified by a pattern. So one-offs we're not really too concerned about, and ultimately we could correct those pretty easily. But when it's a pattern, that's when we're dealing with a passive aggressive person. So we know what it is. How do we deal with it? I gave some more examples in a previous video I did of how we're just going to communicate with them, call it out, ask directly. So a lot of people commented and gave examples of, well, how are they going to respond? And what happens if they double down or they dismiss it, they ignore it, they pretend like, oh no, that's not what I'm doing. I'm just gonna be honest, most passive aggressive, if not all passive aggressive people are probably going to deny it, right? When it comes to being called out, the key word there is passive. So we're avoiding that conflict and that confrontation if we're being passive aggressive. So if you're calling it out, they're probably gonna deny it and dismiss it. Be like, no, that was a misunderstanding. I was just joking, right? And then almost kind of touches base on that gaslighting approach. So we have to be careful about that. And ultimately my response was, we just establish our boundaries. So it doesn't matter if they're ready to acknowledge that they are being passive aggressive or not. They're going to be passive about it. They're going to deny and they're going to sink back and avoid that conflict. So it's our job if somebody is being passive aggressive and it's just ultimately annoying us because it is annoying behavior. We just set the boundaries. Hey, I don't like this. Let's not do this, right? Just be straight with me. Did that hurt you? Did that upset you? Tell me how you're feeling, right? And it's up to you of how much you want to training wheels them or help them along with that to be able to identify what their true feeling is and have an adult and healthy conversation about it. So once again, the examples are just being indirect about negative emotion. So various examples, it could happen in the workplace, it could happen in family, it could happen in our romantic relationships, it can happen in any relationship dynamic. So making those sarcastic remarks, those comments, brushing things off or ignoring, right, and dismissing things, or delaying things, that it would be examples of passive aggressive behavior. And ultimately, we just have to understand that these people or this behavior is coming from some negative emotional state and avoidance of conflict and confrontation. So ultimately, if you follow my last video steps of calling it out and asking them directly for what they want and need, it's a gamble if it's going to work or not. I'm just going to be honest. That's the way I approach it. And then it's kind of like my first step, and I want to see how they're going to respond and then see how high we're going to go with this passive aggressive behavior. Because sometimes I just call it out and I might get that denial and decline and avoidance of it, and then I'm just going to double down, right? I'm going to set that boundary. Hey, I don't like this, right? So just be straight up with me. Tell me what's going on. You made this comment, doesn't make me feel good. What's up? Because the worst thing we could do is be passive aggressive back, right? So if passive aggressive behavior is affecting us and annoying us, I mean, we got to address it. We got to say, hey, look, this behavior, this comment was not nice. It did not make me feel good. So we need to address it, and we're setting that boundary. So I'm going to make a few more videos because this is a big topic and there's a lot of examples and there's different scenarios, different formulas, different relationship dynamics of how I would approach passive aggressive people differently. So obviously in my career, if I'm having a client that's being a little bit more passive, I'm probably not going to push as hard depending on the relationship. Or, if my family's being passive aggressive and I kind of know how much I could dish back out to them and how much I could push back to get the results that I want of having healthy communication, I might push a little bit harder. I might confront it a little bit directly. So ultimately, it really depends on the dynamics. A question I had before was, what if it's your boss? Ugh, big one, right? Scary. So if my boss were to tell me something passive aggressive, I don't want to just call them out straight up and say, dude, like, you're being passive aggressive. What's wrong with you? Type of a thing, right? I have to be a little bit more delicate about that and address it a different way. So stay tuned. Make sure you're subscribing for more future videos on mental health related topics, healthy coping skills, and definitely more videos on this topic of how to address passive aggressive behavior.